Welcome back to Movie Recap. Today I'm gonna show you a 2017 American war drama film called Sandcastle. Spoilers ahead. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. The movie begins at the beginning of 2003, during the war in Iraq, wherein Private Matt Jet Okray, a young civil affairs soldier, walks in the middle of the military camp towards the Humvee vehicle. The narration reveals that he only enlisted in the reserves in July 2001 to get money for college, and not fight for freedom. Afterward, he suddenly slams his hand in the door of a Humvee vehicle as he feels ashamed of joining the military, and tries to attempt to get sent home. Sometime later, Okray shows the cast on his arm while walking in the middle of their camp in the Kuwait staging area. Unfortunately, his attempt turns out to be unsuccessful, giving him another 2 more years to get in a battle against the enemies. While Okray is walking, Cole suddenly calls him to show the Vandals' name on their tank. Okray then shows no emotion, and attempts to walk out, but Cole reminds him that he better be safe if he doesn't see him for the rest of the war. Their next mission is to Iraq for the war, and Cole clarifies that Kuwait staging area will be a ghost town later. Later, Okray's cast gets cut off just in time to be sent to Baghdad. And while his cast is getting detached from his arm, the nurse asks him to rate the pain, and suddenly, Okray stutters from answering as he points out the pain is 10 out of 10. So, the nurse gives him some medicine and prescribes for him to take it double to handle the discomfort. Unfortunately, Okray tries to decline to accept the med, but the nurse insists on taking it, saying that he has already seen guys rolling out with a lot worse. Later at night, Okray and the other soldier begin to maneuver their vehicle as they go for the battle in Iraq. Then, later morning, Okray comes with Sergeant Dillon as they run faster towards the building. Okray suddenly covers the fire upon entering after seeing his colleague getting a muffled gunshot by the sniper. Afterward, Okray radios for his report that sniper fire is not coming from the mosque, but in the hotel, which is only 150 meters from the mosque. After, Sergeant Dillon orders Okray to get on the top as he gets the floor number in the hotel. Once on top, Okray immediately informs Sergeant Dillon that the sniper's on the 3rd floor, southeast corner. However, Sergeant Dillon seems to fail to shoot the sniper, so he calls for a helicopter airstrike to destroy the entire building where the sniper is inside. At first, Okray asks if it's the right thing to bomb the building, yet Sergeant Dillon seems eager to finish the sniper. So, Okray has left no choice, but to let Sergeant Dillon do his thing. Later, Okray and the squad celebrate their successful mission in the mosque as the Sergeant Major announces that they will be staying there for a while. However, Okray suddenly feels lost from thinking about him, joining the reserves to earn money upon entering. 3 months after the battle, Enzo plans to take a picture with an enemy's corpse before getting him inside the vehicle. So, Jim radios him to pick up the pace because they delay sending over the corpse. Yet, Enzo only answers him with a laughing tone on the radio. Afterward, Sergeant Dillon forces Okray to get inside the vehicle with the corpse despite declining his order. Suddenly, when Okray gets inside, he sees the corpse moving. So, he knocks on the door vehicle to tell Enzo that it's still alive, and gets out. To their surprise, both Enzo and Okray see the hand moving of the man they assume to be dead. Yet, Sergeant Dillon assures them that he's only thawing out. Meanwhile, Sergeant Major talks with Staff Sergeant Harper about the big problem with the hole they left in Baghdad's water station after the Apaches fired it. Sergeant Major then says that the command wants some of their guys to attach to the Special Forces team on the ground. As Sergeant Harper listens, he suddenly receives an order that he'll report to Captain Siverson, and starts their mission to run water to the town. After that, they'll be receiving some capital to get the locals working with the engineers on the pumping station. Unfortunately, Sergeant Harper has left no choice but to follow it, giving him the delay to go home as they finish their last mission. Later, Sergeant Harper announces their new mission with the squad. At first, Enzo hesitates to accept the task, but when he hears Chutsky's decision to come, he suddenly agrees with Sergeant Harper. Fortunately, Okray and the rest of his team accept the task of repairing a broken water system in the dangerous village of Bakuba. However, Enzo asks to get a sat phone first to call home before doing their mission. A while later, Okray talks with Sergeant Harper, and starts opening up about his fear of getting into the village. Okray then says they don't control it, and it's possible that the people in that area will not be happy to see them as they destroyed their water supply during the battle. So, Sergeant Harper assures him that they will be pleased once they get the water flowing again. However, despite agreeing, Okray leaves a note that there's a chance that they're walking into something bigger, and he doesn't think he's cut out for that. So, to end Okray's overthinking, Sergeant Harper tells him that he needs a man like him who's wise to see the bigger picture of their mission. The following day, Sergeant Harper receives a warning sign that IED attacks up and down the way, so they must maintain convoy integrity. Afterward, Okray and the squad finally arrive in the village and meet up with a special forces unit led by Captain Siverson. Siverson walks toward Enzo to get the water flowing upon entering the village. Unfortunately, the people start shouting for water after seeing the truck. Some are trying to get aggressive to fill their container first by pushing Okray's squad. So, leaving Burton no choice, he fights back to stop attacking them. Afterward, Siverson introduces Okray's squad to their interpreter, Mahmoud, and explains to keep the water flowing and win the Iraqis' hearts and minds. He then warns them not to play with Mahmoud because he's a prodigy. Afterward, Siverson says no one outside the gate wants them there, so they better do their job and turn their roars into whispers. At night, they will go dark because snipers see a bit of light and probably will start popping shots. The following day, Siverson tells them about traveling to the pump station and filling a tank with water to bring back to the village every day. And it's 3 vehicles and 1 tank per day. Afterward, Okray and the squad maneuver their car to go to the station. At the station, an army engineer working on the pump explains that it will take many weeks to finish repairs, 2 weeks for electrical, and 4 for the pipes to repair. And if Sergeant Harper will be recruiting some of the villagers to help, the repairs will go faster. Luckily, Sergeant Harper shares the good news, saying that they will get some workers to speed it up. Afterward, the engineer and Sergeant Harper go back to where Okray and the squad fill the water using the tank. Then, they compute the time they will take to distribute all the waters from the Iraqis, which will abide by 4 hours, and 3 trips per day. However, they spot a vehicle coming up at high speed behind them during their return trip. Panicking, Sergeant Harper orders the squad to stop their vehicle and investigate the man behind the car. Afterward, they begin interrogating the driver, so Mahmoud translates the man's words in Arabic, saying that his daughter is sick. He's taking her to a relative who has an apothecary, their other term for pharmacy. Then, after checking out that the car is unarmed, Sergeant Harper suddenly assumes that he gets a bad feeling about the guy. So, he plans to arrest him and let the SF guys handle him. Yet, Sergeant Chutsky refuses to believe Harper and gives the guy some money, saying that he should not see him on the road again. But the man refuses to accept it. Back at the village, Mahmoud announces that they will be distributing water on their location every day at 10 a.m. and says that their engineers are working very hard to get their pump station fixed. However, the Iraqis ignore what Sergeant Harper says, but the sergeant continues. He then informs the locals that they will pay anyone who shows up to work the following day as they need help repairing the pump. Afterward, they continue filling the containers of Iraqi citizens despite struggling to line them up. However, when the morning comes, no one in the village dares to fix the pump. Leaving Okray and the squad no choice, they drive their vehicle to the station with no local laborers. Upon their arrival at the station, the army engineer asks about the Iraqis. So, Sergeant Harper answers that no one shows up in the village and will make another plan to work on it. He then says that he and the captain will meet with the sheikh later. Later, Siverson and Harper's squad arrive at the sheikh's house. Upon talking, the sheikh says that he doesn't want any soldiers of the United States anymore to come to their homes. So, Mahmoud says that the soldiers give water to his people. Afterward, Sergeant Harper says that they need an inclusion with his people to work alongside them and help fix the problem they caused. And with his blessing, Sergeant Harper assumes that his people will finally allow them. However, the sheikh answers, saying that if he helps the Americans, he will pay them with his life. The sheikh also says that his people do not trust the Americans. Desperate, Sergeant Harper keeps his promises that he will protect his people even at night. Meanwhile, the local school administrator approaches Okray, saying that he needs to fill the tanks in the school for the children. Fortunately, Okray agrees, and says they will try to see it by tomorrow. The administrator then thanks him, and tells him his name, Kadir, the school director. Unfortunately, Sergeant Harper and his meeting with the sheikh turns out as a failure. So, with no labor forthcoming from the village, Okray and the squad are forced to help the engineers themselves. Suddenly, during Okray and the squad's another trip, several insurgents with small arms attack them, shooting holes in their tank. Shocked, Burton shouts to tell the team to face 3 o'clock to identify the attackers. Fortunately, they keep themselves safe, but their tank gets shot, spilling out the water inside it. The next day, while passing out water, sudden gunfire breaks out. The citizens of Iraqi suddenly panic and run away from the tank. Suddenly, Okray and the squad engage in a pitched firefight with several enemies shooting from the rooftops. Unfortunately, some of the Iraqi citizens get shot, including Chutsky. The following day, a guard calls for Okray, who's busy repairing their damaged vehicle. To Okray's surprise, he sees Kadir outside the gate, apologizing for what happened to his friend, Chutsky. Afterward, Kadir opens up about the water that Okray and the squad will fill in the school because he's already desperate to fill the school's tank to keep the school open. Yet, Okray refuses to do it after the shooting from yesterday. After a while, Okray goes to the headquarters of Siverson to inform him about Kadir's offer that they will help them to repair the pump. Fortunately, Siverson agrees to hear Okray's plans, saying that it's an excellent opportunity to work with him to reach out to the community. Later, Okray and the squad go to the school to give them containers full of water. Afterward, they begin their discussion with Kadir, and make a deal. The following day, Kadir brings some Iraqis, including his brother, Arif. Afterward, they start repairing the pump with the help of the local laborers. While working, Arif says to the army engineers that he will make a new pump in 2 to 3 days. Suddenly, Okray and the squad form a good relationship with the Iraqis who work with them. One morning, none of the Iraqis show up to work, even Kadir and Arif. So, Okray and the squad return to the village when suddenly they find Kadir's body burned, and tied to a stake in the schoolyard. Afterward, Arif unexpectedly visits the headquarters of Siverson. He then, angrily tells Siverson where the insurgents have been meeting. Arif points out the flower shop where the insurgents hide their weapons as he talks. Afterward, Siverson apologizes for his brother's death, and calls the squad as they form a plan to attack that night. Fortunately, their attack succeeds in killing several enemies and capturing more. However, upon their battle with the insurgents, Corporal Enzo and Sergeant Burton suddenly get hit by an explosion bomb and severe injury. Because of that, Captain Siverson evacuates them by helicopter, reporting that there is one stable and one critical. As Burton and Enzo enter the aircraft, Enzo suddenly apologizes to Sergeant Harper. Yet, the sergeant only answers him to take care of the critical Burton. The following day, work on the pump station finally resumes. To Okray's surprise, he sees Arif bringing his crew of local laborers to help them. Unfortunately, only Sergeant Harper and Okray have left the squad. While working, one of the workers in the suicide bombing suddenly brings an improvised explosive device into the pump station, destroying all of the work done by the group, and killing several American and Iraqis, including Arif. Luckily, Sergeant Harper and Okray get safe, and Sergeant Harper instantly requests an immediate medevac and reinforcements. Afterward, Okray and Harper return to their base in Baghdad. Then, upon their arrival, Okray plans on taking a bath to prepare himself for his meeting with First Lieutenant. The movie ends with Sergeant Harper finally receiving 3 weeks leave to return to Riyadh from the First Lieutenant. Then, Okray, on the other hand, will eventually go home as he sends him back on the level ground. At first, Okray tries to protest, and plans on staying, but he suddenly gets overruled by Sergeant Harper, saying that it's time for him to go home. Then, later that day, Sergeant Harper and Sergeant Major McGregor escort Okray to the airfield. However, before he boards the plane, Okray asks Sergeant McGregor if it's a beautiful day for the infantry. And to Okray's surprise, he receives an enthusiastic affirmation from Sergeant Major McGregor, saying that it's a beautiful day for him to catch up with his new fate. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.